Alright, so like another one of my recent videos, the one that I did on James Kirkland, this is going to be me reading off a comment I left on another YouTuber's chat log on his comment section, and just expounding upon it after the fact. This one was the Andre Ward, quote, "I feel stronger at 175 pounds," unquote, video by Mr. Boxing Today too. I like his channel. He's got a good channel. He focuses mostly on the heavyweight, so I guess he's a little bit of the opposite of where I'm at on the spectrum of boxing. But I mean, otherwise, you know, both of us talk about boxing as a whole. So he's a good dude to check out if you want to peep a lot of the up and comers as far as heavyweights go. But this video, of course, is about Andre Ward, a newly found light heavyweight. So here it goes. And this is my response to him. He fought at up to 178 as a teenage amateur. Most fighters and weight class athletes in general, especially in the post-mid-80s 30-hour plus day before weigh-in era, are towing the line between maximizing their power to weight / muscle to weight ratios and weakening themselves due to electrolyte, fluid, and blood volume imbalances. Often in the weight cut, guys will lose a number of important vitamins, such as the energy-producing Bs and immunological Cs, minerals, sodium and potassium, which stave off muscle fatigue and cramping under both acutely and prolonged intensive work, and metals, zinc, copper, and the blood oxygen important iron, which directly affects cardiovascular status. Then I gave a little space, and not only would I be surprised to see a refreshed and strong as ever Ward in the ring, I expect him to look every bit as good as he did in his better Super 6 performances due to all of the paragraph aforementioned factors. It'll be up to Barrera's actual quality as a fighter unto himself that decides how this fight plays out, since his level of opposition is making a leap not unlike what Russell faced versus Lomachenko recently. And I mean, basically I spelled it out right there. Most fighters are really depleting themselves like crazy in their weight cuts, and even if they're not really necessarily cutting a lot of weight, Andre Ward to me at 168 at super middleweight was pretty much playing the Bernard Hopkins roles of weight cutting, whereby he was staying fairly close to his fight weight all year round, and then cutting you know, of course, cutting in the weeks of training camp and leading up to the fight, where, you know, he would be able to maintain a lot of his strength, and otherwise his body wouldn't necessarily have that yo-yo effect where like all of a sudden he gains 30 pounds after, or 40 pounds after weighing in and then actually fighting. You know, a lot of fighters wind up doing that because it's like they've drained their body so much, their body's starving for all those nutrients and minerals and metals to get back in them, that it's like they have, and also it's a psychological effect too. You know, their brain is thinking like, well, you're killing me, so I'm gonna try and put on more weight. I'm gonna eat more food and hold on to more fat and crave more fattening foods in order for you to keep us from starving to death. You know, it's just a natural physiological and psychological reaction to that physiology change. So I mean, but with Ward, you know, when you stay close to your weight all year round, that effect is lessened to a certain degree because your body isn't having that same kind of like sudden shock to the system. It's just more of like a minor prick as opposed to getting, you know, like a deep cut, for instance. You know, it's like maybe a little like prick with a pin as opposed to a large paper cut, for instance, like a cardboard paper cut. You know, those things hurt like hell. But basically, Ward is one of those guys. I think, like, for instance, Golovkin is actually another one of those guys. That's why I think Golovkin, whenever he winds up moving up, he'll probably be even more dangerous than he looks right now, because I think even at 160, I think keeping his body artificially around the 170 range or 180 range, and actually, yeah, he's looked around, you know, the 180 or 190 range lately when he hasn't been in training camp. I think that also, to a degree, limits the amount of strength and overall power and just overall explosiveness that a fighter can have. And even though Mr. Boxing Today, too, mentioned the fact that a lot of times fighters, they lose speed when they gain weight, I don't think it's necessarily that they lose speed a lot of the times. I mean, usually when you gain fat as body weight, yeah, you lose speed. But a lot of these guys are cutting weight so much, they're really, like I said, they're cutting fluid, they're cutting electrolytes. You know, their bodies those electrolytes allow you to have both fast twitch and slow twitch muscle reactions. And so if those electrolytes aren't on point, that literally it's just like, you know, if you're charging your phone or if you're charging your computer, it's like your computer isn't going to react, your phone isn't going to react because it's low on battery or it's low on charge. You know, it's like having a full hard drive. You know, you need to free up space because you know, it's like you've stressed the limits of your body to such a degree that your body isn't going to react as quickly. Your brain might see the openings, but your body's not going to react to those openings in the same semblance that you otherwise would if you were better hydrated, better nutrified, and so on and so forth. So I think usually moving up one weight class or two probably isn't going to really affect speed as much as it is moving up several weight classes and then, you know, gaining weight artificially the way Roy Jones did. And I'm not, when I say artificially, I don't mean necessarily that he was cheating, you know, that he was using illegal peds or anything. But, you know, there's plenty of performance enhancing drugs that are legal right now that, you know, fighters could take that'll probably be illegal in a few years, or maybe illegal in 5 or 10 years, or, you know, there's new stuff, new compounds that are constantly coming available that will be illegal later on, but, you know, as they're available right now over the counter or with a prescription or what have you, you know, they'll be, you know, utilized as, you know, to as much of a degree as possible by fighters. And that's also putting, and that's not only that, but also putting into account the idea of like weight training and muscle building, bodybuilding with weight training. Like even in the classical sense, before the advent of, you know, steroids and stuff like that, where guys wouldn't necessarily be gaining weight as a part of their overall, you know, growth as a human being, as the human body, but, you know, putting on weight intentionally, putting on weight intentionally in order to be more powerful, be bigger, stronger, faster, and, you know, just having more overall explosive fitness in order to be able to have an advantage over an opponent, which is pretty much what Roy Jones did when he moved from light heavy to heavyweight, where he, you know, at light heavy he was comfortable making the weight, and he was, you know, fast, strong, you know, a very muscular light heavyweight, even though he had been coming up from super middle and middle. With heavyweight, he was putting the muscle on with the intent of being able to try to compete in terms of strength with bigger guys like a John Ruiz. You know, John Ruiz, who was a very physically strong heavyweight, even though he wasn't a big puncher, he was a very physically strong guy. You know, he was a guy that was a wrestler pretty much. You know, he was a grappler heavy, he was a grappler boxer basically, where he would, you know, hit you, tie you up, and just, you know, make you so tired that a lot of his opponents really weren't able to beat him just based off of that, just based off of his brute force that he would put on you and exhaust you with. So that's my feeling about Roy Jones. I mean, not just Roy Jones, but about Andre Ward. Freudian slip right there. About Andre Ward, and you know, like to use. I'll probably do a few more videos about like weight cutting and guys that have cut a little too much weight and have looked stronger moving up. I mean, Miguel Cotto's a recent example of that. When he was at 140, he was more chinny. You know, he didn't have the reaction time to roll with the punches as well. After a while of cutting weight at 140, and then also even at 147, even though he makes all the claims about, you know, not being a big light middleweight or a big middleweight. I mean, he moved up in weight for a reason. And I think it's because even at welterweight he was facing some stamina issues and possibly some chin issues as time wore on, and his body got tired of making that weight as well. And also the fact that, you know, some guys' bodies just bounce back better from weight cuts than others, you know. And then, you know, you're also, like I said, you're towing the line. And eventually sometimes that line gets pushed further. It gets pushed further in the higher realm for you. And you just can't make the lower weights anymore without needing as much time to recover, more than the 30 hours or 36 hours or 24 hours or whatever it is between the weigh-in and the fight. You wind up needing more time than just that short span in order to really recover from such a weight cut. I think actually another good example was Roman Gonzalez back when he fought Francisco Rosas. If you guys ever check out that fight, Roman Gonzalez in the first fight with Rosas it was a very close, tough fight. Gonzalez won it by majority decision. They rematched at their first fight was at 105 at Gonzalez's original weight class. You know, when Gonzalez was a champion at 105. Their rematch was after Gonzalez had moved up to 108, and I think some of that explosiveness showed. The extra 3 pounds helped Gonzalez, because even though Rosas appeared to still be troublesome for for Gonzalez, the same way he was in the first fight, because he had a lot of speed, and he came in with a very like a in and out ambush style that made it so that Gonzalez really had to time him better, and he really couldn't anticipate him as well. Like, he had to pretty much grind him down. In the second fight, I think Gonzalez overall, like, he was healthier at 108 than he had been at 105, and it showed with the way he was able to knock out Rosas in the second round. Whereas in the first fight, he was hammering Rosas, and Rosas wasn't going away for anything, and he gave him a tough 12-round fight. In the second fight at 108, I think the weight made a little bit of a difference, as well as more experiences along with that, because Gonzalez was a young, precocious fighter at the time. So Ward, I expect to be on his game. I expect him to look as good as he's ever looked at 175 compared to when he was at 168. He already had his warm-up bout, basically his comeback warm-up fight with Paul Smith. So he should, and he's been training. He's a guy that trains pretty much all year round, and he's had a couple of good camps. So he should be in shape and on point for this Barrera fight. And really, the onus is on Sullivan Barrera to be as good of a fighter as some people project that he is, and show any flaws technically as well as physically that Ward may have against somebody like Barrera. Barrera is a guy that he's taken a big step up against Ward, and even though he's been able to dominate the lower levels of opposition that he's fought, it becomes a whole different game when you step up to the elite, world-class, world championship level fighters. So I expect both guys to be very healthy in there. If anything, Barrera may be the one that may be a little bit weakened, because he's fought at cruiserweight in the past, and he's not a small light heavyweight, but he's been making the weight pretty handily, it seems, from his last few weigh-ins. Even though he's a very lean guy, I doubt that it's too much of a struggle for him at this point. I think probably he'll wind up moving up to cruiserweight eventually again, but for now, I think he's in a good spot in the way he's able to make light heavy. So Ward versus Barrera, I expect a good fight. I expect a refreshed and very strong Andre Ward, and I expect both fighters to be on their game. We'll see when the fight happens. So I'll leave Mr. Boxing Today 2's video in the description box, and you can read my reply over there. Check out his video, and on to the next.